I literally sat here and struggled to try to think of an intro for this, and I literally couldn't think of anything whatsoever. Oh, man. I love being neurodivergent. Anyway, welcome to the Divergence and Divine podcast. My name is WIllspiration. You can call me Will for short. This is the first episode of Divergence and Divine. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about myself. So my name is Will. I am level 1 autistic with no verbal impairment and combined ADHD, along with general anxiety disorder and dyslexia and depression. So my whole goal for this podcast is literally to help anyone that's neurodivergent, or if they suspect that they're neurodivergent, then they can kind of just like listen and kind of see like what affects me, which is actually what I'm going to use to segue into our first topic, which is basically autism affects everybody differently. I'm starting with this one specifically because ADHD, I'm still kind of doing more research on it. Generally speaking, it does affect everyone sort of the same, but not in the same degree, whereas autism is a literal spectrum. So that literal spectrum is like, you could be a level 1 autistic person with no verbal impairment like myself, and then, still be afraid of loud noises even when you're in your 30s like myself. So it's kind of a very interesting thing to me, because I sit here and I think to myself, I always thought it was all the same. And especially after I first got my diagnosis when I was 27, back in March of 2020, I was sitting there thinking, oh, well, it's kind of, it's got to be the same thing, right? And then the more I looked into it, the more I realized, oh, it's not the same thing. Everyone is like, that's on the spectrum is different, and they're affected differently. And it kind of made it harder to kind of pinpoint, I guess, like how I felt about it, because it's just like, well, if everyone is different on the spectrum, how am I supposed to know how to cope with being on the spectrum if I can't find one specific thing to help me? So as time went on after my diagnosis, I'm sitting here basically just overthinking things and just not, I guess, having faith in myself, to put it simply. Because when I think back on it, I always think back to when I was growing up, where, I was sensitive to loud noises. My sense of smell was like very powerful. My sense of touch, which is still like this even in my 30s, is very sensitive. A lot of the times I can bump myself on something and literally feels like I'm going to get a bruise because it hurts that much. And then like literally like a minute later it goes away, and it's like later on, a couple hours later, if I check that spot, there's like no bruise. My coordination is I guess you could say. It's not the greatest. Every once in a while I do tend to trip on nothing, literally. If anybody from work is listening to this, I'm pretty sure you've probably seen me a couple times just walking, and then my foot decides it doesn't want to bend, and I literally like drag my foot across the floor and almost fall on my face. So yeah, a little embarrassing, but that is a thing. But I think over time, what really helped was just kind of, well, I don't like being made fun of. So I would literally sit there and like push my tolerance and, my limit on my sensory issues, and just kind of learn to tolerate it, essentially. Of course, then later on, I ended up with seasonal allergies, and then now, and I think I may have a deviated septum, but I'm not sure. All I know is that as I got older, like stuff in my sinuses got all messed up, so now it's like my sinuses are like inflamed, and it just seems like everything kind of irritates my seasonal allergies. So my sense of smell is no longer extremely powerful, but it's also not great either. So Like, unless something is like literally right up against my nose, I literally can't smell it. Yay. I don't know. I might have that looked into at some point. Loud noises don't scare me anymore. Unless it's like really, really loud, I might jump. I might even let out a little scream too if I get really startled, but it's never really as bad as it was when I was a kid. Coordination issues though, I don't know how to go about talking about that, because it's like, the more stressed out and anxious I am, the more it seems like my coordination issues get worse. But when I'm in a better headspace, my coordination is like on point. I think a good example that I could bring up would be like me in Taekwondo. Back when I was in middle school, all the way up to my freshman year of high school, I did Taekwondo. And I was like so happy, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be a black belt and people are going to stop picking on me. And strangely enough, like, I was able to actually learn a lot of the different, what they call forms, which were basically essentially like pre-made like movements that you could use, but it also kind of tests your ability to remember things. And I remember being able to perform them to the point where I got so nonchalant and sloppy while doing them that on my test for red belt black stripe, I actually failed my test because I got so sloppy and overconfident, because I just remembered it that well. So it's like, if I would have tried a little bit harder, it's like I would have been on point. But like, even at work, like when I'm at work and I'm in a good mood, I can do like 3 different positions on the line that I work in, that I'm put on sometimes. Of course, if anybody from my work that works in my value stream is listening, you guys kind of probably know which line I'm talking about. But it's just kind of, it's the most interesting thing, I feel like, because this is kind of where the whole divine aspect is going to kind of come into play, because I'm a little more spiritual. I grew up very Lutheran, and that's kind of what I grew up as. We would always go down to the church down the street when I was a kid. My dad himself was a Catholic, and then converted to Christianity. I myself I do believe that there is like a God and a creator, but I also think that there's more to the Bible and like other forms of religious scripture. So for me, I kind of explore more of the metaphysical and spiritual side. I'm also a level 3 Reiki practitioner, and within the next couple weeks, I will be getting my Reiki master teacher. So that means I'll be able to teach people Reiki as well. Basically, for anybody that doesn't know, Reiki is energy work, and it's believed that working with people's energy and smoothing holes in the auric field and just kind of taking any sort of negative energy out of the chakras really helps rebalance a person. And when you rebalance your energy, it also kind of helps rebalance like your mind, your body, and your spirit. And I do genuinely believe that, your energy levels do kind of determine where you're at, how your body functions, and how things play out in life. Because a more positive mindset and keeping your energy levels, or, and the way that we refer to it as is vibrations. As long as you keep your energy and your vibrations up and you keep a more open and positive mindset, you can literally manifest the things that you want. The best way to put it would be like, manifesting is basically like praying in a way, but you just think it to believe it. So it's a very similar concept to praying, at least in my opinion. That's how I view it as, if you need some sort of comparison. But generally speaking, whenever I'm in that higher vibration and that more positive mindset, I'm not really stressed out. I'm not letting things around me bother me. I do so well. Like, my coordination is amazing. I can do a lot more. I can get things done. My focus is, it's almost like I'm able to tap into that ability to hyper focus with ADHD and be able to actually use that instead of it just being completely random or on like a special interest. And to me, it's just like the weirdest thing. Like, being neurodivergent is like the weirdest feeling, because it's like, there's also times where I can't focus for crap. Like, literally, I cannot focus at all. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, man, I really want to do this and I can't. And a great example is starting this episode of this podcast, where I'm sitting here like for like the last week trying to get it started. And I'm like, man, I just can't get anything going. Like, no matter what I try to talk about, no matter how I try to start it, nothing flows. And it's just like, but then today I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to record this. And then after like, I don't know, like 4 takes, I finally got this one going. So now it's like, if I make any mistakes or anything like that while I'm talking, I'm literally just going to be like, you know what? If it's not too bad that I can edit it out, I'll edit it out. Otherwise, all my little verbal mistakes and, coordination and all that other stuff is just going to have to sit in here, because I don't feel like editing it out. And I feel like that also takes away from some of the authenticity of me being neurodivergent, is just kind of all the little, like, as I'm recording this in Audacity right now, I can see like all the little gaps in between my words where there's like absolutely no words whatsoever. And it's just kind of like, I could edit that out, but at the same time, the small little pauses that I do, because it allows my brain to think of what to say next, is kind of like part of the autism and the ADHD and the neurodivergent experience as a whole. So it's going to be really interesting to just listen and play this back, because I'm like, I can't wait to hear how this sounds. Because like, one thing that I always like to do is I always like to listen back to things whenever I do something like make a video or just do any sort of recording, because I like to go back and hear like, wow, is this what I sound like to people? Like, is this, because like obviously everybody hears your voice differently than how you hear your own voice. So like, to me, I sound like I actually have some tone in my voice, and I'm actually talking, and I'm like very I feel like I'm pretty energetic. But like, I could go back and listen to this later, and when I get around to like the 13-minute mark and I hear myself talking about this, I'm going to be like, well, that's how I thought I sounded like, but I'm actually pretty monotone and kind of boring. Because, fun fact, all the way back when I was a junior in high school, back in 2009, I actually tried doing a YouTube channel. And that was back when like the whole gaming YouTube scene was still developing, and like Let's Plays were a thing. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I remember that the laptop that my dad got me, it was like, wasn't the greatest. And I was like trying to like do some Super Mario World ROM hacks on there. And I had gotten like a little headset, like this cheap little headset. And I was trying to do, recording stuff. And I remember posting a couple episodes of a Let's Play, and then people were telling me, oh, you're too monotone. Oh, you have no energy. Oh, man, this guy is boring. Oh, man, this guy just, sucks at commentary. And I remember after like 5 episodes of my Let's Play, that was it. I literally just stopped. I deleted all the videos, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm like, nope, that's it. But now that I know that it's from the autism, I'm like, I don't care if people think that I'm monotone and boring, like, sounding, because I'm sorry, but that's just my voice. Like, I literally can't change that. If that's how it sounds like to you, that's, I guess that's unfortunate for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a very boring and monotone person, because anybody that knows me knows that I'm very energetic. I stim a lot, and I can either be a very energetic, ball of energy, or I'm just kind of Mr. Depresso sometimes. So it depends on what I'm feeling. Because, yay, mental illnesses. But I don't really let that define me. And I feel like that's going to be my next point, is not letting your autism and ADHD define who you are. Because the biggest thing, especially if you just got diagnosed later on in life, it can be a really big hit to your ego, basically. Because now when you get hit with that, even if you're just level 1, autism is considered a disability under, the ADA, which is the American with Disabilities Act. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I'm not disabled. But then you have one day where, your autism is just like for example, where my coordination issues are a problem. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, maybe I am disabled. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't do that. But my Reiki teacher, who's also my life coach currently, made a very good point, is that I needed to stop leading with the autism and the ADHD, and I needed to stop letting that define who I am, and remember that I'm Will, like I am me. Like, yeah, I have ADHD, yes, I have autism, but that doesn't define who I am. Because the more you think about it, and the more you think, because I have this, I can't do what I wanted to do now. That's not really how it works. Like, it goes back again to, your vibrations and your energy. It's like the higher vibrations and the higher, energy and the more positive mindset you have, the more you it really does affect how you feel and how your body functions, at least for me. But I'm also more spiritually in tune with things, so that could be why. Which everybody can learn how to adjust to things, and get more spiritually in tune. So if it's not something that you can do right away, you can learn it. But like for me, I was kind of more already on the spiritual side of things, as it stood. So that's kind of why it's a little more easier for me. But it's just I noticed that once I stopped leading with the autism and the ADHD, and I just went back to just like being how I was pre-diagnosis, it's like, oh wow, like it turns out that I wasted 4 years of my life overthinking the disability label, and it's just like literally nothing has changed. Like, I'm still me. The only difference is that I know I have autism and ADHD, and that's literally it. Nothing about me has changed. Nothing about the way that my brain, works has changed since the diagnosis. The only thing that changed was literally my mindset and my mood because of the diagnosis. And for me, I think it's just, I don't know. I think it's very hard for some people, whereas other people would be totally okay with it. And it's just like, it's so interesting because you kind of see other people's perspectives. And when you're trying to learn other people's perspectives, it's like, it's easier for a neurodivergent to relate to another neurodivergent person, because it's like, oh, you have ADHD like me, or oh, you have autism like me, or oh, hey, you have both like I do. Whereas like with neurotypicals, this is like, which are people that don't have ADHD or autism, or any sort of, like, I guess, deviance in normal brain function, or, brain wiring, however you want to look at it. It's like, they don't feel as relatable, and it feels like they struggle to understand you more. And it's just kind of like, oh, well, now it's just like, now I don't want to interact with people that don't have one or the other because they don't understand me. But for me, I always like to say that, like, even if they don't have ADHD or like autism, if they still have something that you have, like for me, I know several people that have anxiety and depression like I do. So, like, I can relate to them on that level as well. And then it's just kind of like, oh, hey, we even have a similar way of thinking. Or, what you learned in therapy helped me, or, the way you look at things when you're in that mode, kind of works for me too. So I wanted to say thank you for, showing me how to, find a different way to cope that's healthier than, the way that I usually cope. So it's just like there's always something to relate to, and I feel like that's kind of like the biggest thing is there's this whole division of neurotypical versus neurodivergent. Like, yeah, we're very very outpopulated, clearly. I mean, I'm not sure on what the number is, but I know that I read somewhere online that studies have shown that neurodivergence is on the rise. So, like, there is an increasingly amount of people that are being diagnosed with ADHD or autism. Kids are being born with ADHD or autism more and more. So it kind of seems like at this rate, the world will go from being more neurotypical friendly to more neurodivergent friendly. But the other thing too is that neurodivergence is also just kind of like a different way of seeing things and a different way of thinking. And it doesn't really seem to affect neurotypicals aside from kind of just understanding the basic premise of it. Like, oh, well, why would you do it that way? And it's just kind of like, I mean, it just kind of makes more sense to me, to do it this way rather than doing it the other way. It was funny because I responded to an Instagram reel, and it was a neurodivergent content creator, and she was her reel was a post about like different scenarios where, like I don't know if it was like her experiences exactly, or if it was just like fan submitted scenarios that were submitted to her that she acted out. But it was basically like her asking questions for clarifications, like clarification on things, but it was like met with criticism, like, why is everything always an issue with you? Or, like, is that a problem? Like, why, I don't see what the issue is, because it's like for us, it's just like sometimes the way that neurotypical people do things doesn't necessarily make sense to our brain, whether it's because it just seems very counterintuitive or counterproductive, or maybe it's just because the concept is good, but maybe the structure of it could be better, or the structure of it is just kind of, it could be rearranged basically, because like some steps just kind of don't make sense to be where they're at. Things might actually literally just feel completely backward to us. Like, why would you do this last instead of doing it first? Or why would you do this third instead of doing it fourth? Or at least to my brain, that's how my brain kind of works. So it's just kind of like, you can sit there and you could just ask these questions all day long, and it's just kind of like, but at the same time, it also depends on how you frame the question too, because like, if you frame the question in a way that sounds like you're complaining, even if you're not, that's how people are going to take it as. Whereas if you were to just, I don't know, say, like just ask it more of an, hey, I don't mean to, interrupt, or like, or hey, I don't mean to sound rude or anything when I ask this, but, is there a reason why we do it like this? And then from there, you just kind of explain your side, like, because to me, it would kind of make more sense to do, this, and this, because of A, B, and C, and this kind of just feels a little counterproductive. So that's why I just kind of wanted to have it explained a little more in detail, so I can kind of put it together so I can make sense of it more, because maybe I'm just missing something that makes this actually better than the way that I'm thinking of doing it. I remember that, there were times where, it's like I would ask questions like that and they would explain it to me. But I remember that I had a math teacher in high school, and he was so good at explaining things. Like, he would show you like 2 or 3 different ways to solve a math problem. And when it came time to do the tests on that chapter of the math book, he didn't care how you did it, as long as you got the answer right, it was fine. If you did it any of 1-3 ways, it did not matter. Whereas like other math teachers at my high school were like, you have to do it the way that the book shows you. Like, I understand that, this way helps you understand it more, but you have to learn how to do it this way. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay. The thing is that it doesn't make sense to my brain to do it that way, because I just feel like the steps are more confusing. And especially like with, having dyslexia too, which, that's something I'll get into in a second, because I'm so tempted to explain it right now because of my ADHD, but I'm just going to finish this topic really quick. But eventually I was able to learn how to do some things in math the correct way by learning how to do it the different way. So that was actually pretty cool, and I was just like, you know what, I like that. That's actually really helpful. So it's amazing to kind of see how, things are just kind of like, oh, if you do it like this, it's still the same thing, it's just in a way that makes sense to your brain more. And I feel like that's part of what's lacking in the school system, is showing people how to do things a different way and still yield the same result. Like, you get the same answer no matter how you do it. And I feel like that could be something that could be improved upon. But as a little side note, because this is going to bug me if I don't talk about it, is I found out that there's like different levels of dyslexia. Like, it's kind of like promoted that dyslexia is like seeing numbers or letters mirrored or like upside down or like jumbled up. But dyslexia is also like not being able to retain that much information via reading. And then if you have ADHD, it's even worse, because then like you're not retaining the information, and then like you're skipping around and you're losing your spot when you're reading, which makes it even more ineffective to learn things by reading. That's why like it always kind of bugged me growing up when my mom was just like, you need to read more, you'll be smarter if you read books. And it's just like, but I literally cannot retain more than 2 pages of information at a time. Like, I could probably read a chapter of a storybook in like 3 days. Like, it would take me that long, so then that way I could actually understand the story. Like, I would have to read 2 to 5 pages a day, every day, to get through one chapter. And that's so that I could actually like retain what I read. And then, after I read that whole chapter, then I could go back and read it, the whole way through, and then finally be able to piece it all together and go, oh, okay, so that's what chapter 1 was about. But if it's something that does catch my interest, I will read it, even if I won't retain everything, because it's just like in the moment, and it's just kind of like, oh, I really like this, and then like I'll wake up the next morning and be like, I don't remember anything past page 5, but I just know that I liked it, so I'm just gonna keep going from where I left off. Otherwise, I'd sit there and like probably end up having to reread chapter 1 like probably 3 or 4 times before I can move to chapter 2. But that's besides the point. So yeah, I just wanted to get that little tangent out of the way before it just kind of sits in the back of my mind and goes, why didn't you talk about me? And I go, I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah, see, my brain is a fun kind of crazy. I've been told that I'm very funny, by a couple of people, and I'm just like, am I really funny though, or am I just very hyperactive and people find that amusing? Which, I know a lot of people are not okay with being laughed at, but like for me, like I don't care if people laugh at me or laugh with me. Like if I'm making somebody laugh and it's making their day better, screw it, I don't care. Like that just means that I helped somebody out maybe they were having a bad day, and, me just being myself made them laugh. And to me, that's okay. And I mean, I feel like that's part of like the biggest thing about comedy is you have to, learn that people are going to laugh with you and at you. And I feel like the reason why we laugh at people when it comes to things that we find funny is because, there's humor. I feel like there's humor in people's, downfalls, I guess, so to speak, both in a literal and metaphorical sense. Like, tripping and falling flat on your face is funny. You'll see something like that on America's, funniest home videos, but it sucks with that person. But also at the same time, if you sit there and you feel embarrassed about yourself, again, going back to like, energy and vibrations, that kind of puts you in a lower vibration. And, another sense of, another key part of having a sense of humor is being able to laugh at yourself and with yourself as well. Because once you learn to laugh at yourself and you learn to laugh with yourself, it's just kind of like, if you, trip and you fall on your face, and you just kind of let out a little chuckle and you go, oh, that sucks. But hey, at least I'm okay and I didn't break anything. And then you get back up and you just, dust yourself off and you, go on with your day. Then it's just kind of like, yeah, somebody might be laughing at you, but it doesn't really matter because you were laughing at yourself too, because you're just like, how did I trip? How am I so clumsy that I tripped and fell on my face? Like, that is the most interesting thing ever, and I don't know why. And then you just kind of just keep going on with your day. So it's just, to me, I don't know. It's so, and I've said this many times already in this podcast, like in this episode, but like, I just can't get over the fact of how interesting the neurodivergent experience is, because there's just so many things that happen that it's just like, as I'm talking about it, I'm just like, wow, that's the most interesting thing ever. And I didn't even think about it. Like, yeah, I kind of give it like a passing thought, but I never really actually, grab that thought and just kind of reflect on it and go, wow, this is actually kind of cool. Because I'm sure like some people might listen to it and listen to this and be like, like, how is that interesting? Like, it just kind of seems like a normal day. And it's just kind of like, yeah, but when you really stop to reflect on it, that's when you kind of go, oh, wow, this is pretty interesting, or, this is pretty cool. And I'm just like, huh, I should probably start reflecting on things more often like this. Who knows? Maybe I'll do that for this, for some episodes of this podcast. I think for me, honestly, I think just being neurodivergent and like, having that ability to perform Reiki and soon to be, able to teach people Reiki is very amazing. And like just kind of learning how to keep those vibrations up and that in your, in your energy, at a high vibration, and just kind of, learning how to accept yourself and kind of, and kind of just stop seeing yourself for like the things that you do have that like would be like something considered a disadvantage, like, being autistic and being ADHD. Like, instead of seeing myself as, this autistic, like combined hyperactive ADHD, extremely anxious because of general anxiety disorder, occasionally depressed because of my depression, and just, dyslexic person, I'm like, I just see myself as well. Like, I'm just me. Like, I'm here. Like, and I'm chilling. I'm vibing. I'm just doing my own thing. And it's so amazing because, like, once you kind of start being true to yourself and you're like your real authentic self, and you just kind of, you're just chilling, you're just vibing, and you just kind of do your own thing. It's so amazing how like people sense that shift in your vibrations and your energy. And it's just like, when you keep your vibrations and like your vibration and your energy up, like how people kind of become more drawn to you because of the fact that it's just like people can actually sense those vibrations. It's like when people say, "Oh, you have really good vibes. I like you." It's just like, you know, they're telling you that your vibration and your energy is so good and it's very high, and it's like you just make people feel very comfortable around you because it's just like they can sense that, oh, you're actually just being true to yourself, and that's pretty cool. And then of course, that's not to say that there aren't people out there that are not going to be like, rude people, and when they are true to themselves, they're very mean and they're very vicious and they just don't care about anybody, because there are people that are out there that are like that. And it's just kind of like, but that also, again, comes back to like the saying of people, showing their true colors. And that's part of authenticity, is just like showing who you truly are. No mask, no, people pleasing. You're just being you. And I feel like if the world was like that more, it would definitely be a much better place, because then you don't have to feel like you need to impress anybody, or that you need to be like, oh yeah, I can, like, I like doing this, I like doing that, and then like really like you actually don't like doing that stuff. You're just kind of like, oh, I'm just saying this because I want someone, like, I want people to like me, or I want this person that I'm interested to like me. It's just like, no, it's just like, if you're yourself, you will attract the right people, for your circle. And for me, I've kind of learned that it does feel pretty good to have people like that. Like I got my autistic, and ADHD people that I talk to all the time. I got neurotypical people that I can relate to from an anxiety and depression standpoint that I talk to all the time. I have people that are just really chill, that are just super cool to talk to, that I talk to all the time. And it's just kind of like, it does feel pretty nice to be, heard out. And, it's so weird because this is like when you talk to people, and especially like at work, because typically, the rule is like you kind of don't want to actually like typically make friends with people at work. You kind of want to keep them on that like acquaintance level. But like for me, I've noticed that, a lot of the people at my work are actually, pretty cool, I would say. And then there's the very few of them that like I would genuinely say like, it's just like I could say without a doubt that they're, that we're friends. Like no ands, ifs, or buts. Like we're friends. In my eyes, we're friends. Maybe to them we're just, coworkers, or we're just acquaintances. But I'm also pretty good at being able to tell like who I'll click with pretty well. So like I know that if I can confidently say that I think of somebody as a friend, then I know at some point, down the line, like the more I work with these people, like if we start hanging out like outside of work and going to, to the bar and getting a couple drinks on Friday nights and things like that, it's like, okay, now I can kind of say, like with confidence that like, yeah, this person and I could actually be friends. Cause like if we're going out after work and we're getting, a couple drinks and stuff, yeah, that feels like kind of going past the acquaintance mark and getting closer to that friend territory. And I would say right now I got 1, 2. I'm literally going to be counting out loud because I kind of need to. So 3, 4, 5. I'd say I at least have a dozen people at my work that I would actually be able to say that I consider friends. And like out of them, like about 5 or 6 of them I talk to outside of work. Like I'll message them on Snapchat or on Facebook Messenger. And then I have one that doesn't work with me anymore, but like I still I still talk to her a lot, even though we don't work together anymore. So it's just kind of like, there's this, I don't know. There's just this thing that when you have like a higher vibration and you're just very authentic and true to yourself, like you just, you attract good and you attract good people. And I feel like that's just a very positive and like rewarding experience. And it makes me happy. And, genuinely, it truly does. And I'm very excited to actually be able to just kind of start sharing the things that I've learned and what's helped me, and just kind of, if anybody's like thinking about getting into the metaphysical and spiritual stuff, like, this podcast will be able to actually help you. And I'm very excited and just looking forward to starting this venture. So, with that, that's going to end today's episode of Divergence and Divine. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be doing this once a week. Usually this will be going up either on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how much editing I need to do. But I look forward to, speaking to you guys again next week. And I always like to, just let things flow naturally. I always like to wing it. So as to what we'll talk about next week, I have no idea. It'll literally just kind of, I guess, it'll come to me when I start next week's episode. But I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys are, I'm going to be putting this only on YouTube. So make sure, if you guys like this, to subscribe and drop a like. It would mean a lot. And that way you don't miss any new videos when they go live. Also hit the bell as well, because that'll give you notifications when I do upload a new podcast episode. At some point, as this starts to grow, I will put it on like Spotify and other platforms as well. So yeah, thank you so much for spending time and listening to me rant and ramble about my neurodivergence. And it means a lot, and I'm happy to be able to do this. And if you guys have any sort of questions, you guys can leave them down in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to them in between work and whatnot. So yeah, I hope you guys all have a good rest of your week and a good start to your next week, and I will see you guys next Wednesday or Thursday, depending on, again, editing. So bye.